Husband announced he was leaving me at our daughter's graduation, but started screaming when Part 1 Intro 3000 characters. I always thought if my life were a movie, I'd be one of those calm background characters. The wife, the mom, the dependable one who brings snacks to PTA meetings and remembers to wash everyone's socks. Nothing dramatic, nothing wild, just normal, safe. That's probably why I didn't see it coming. It was my daughter Sarah's college graduation. A bright June afternoon. Families everywhere were buzzing with joy. I'd been planning this day for months. Her cap and gown, her surprise dinner after the ceremony, even the little speech I was going to give. We sat in the third row. My husband, Mark, looked calm. Maybe a little too calm, in hindsight. He had that stiff smile he uses when he's lying. I didn't pay much attention. I was too busy watching my baby walk across the stage. I cried. Of course I cried. 18 years of scraped knees, bedtime stories, and math homework. It all led to this. Then Mark leaned over. He didn't even look at me when he whispered, "I'm leaving you after this is over." I thought I misheard him. I turned to look at him, but his eyes were still focused straight ahead, clapping along. Like nothing happened. My ears rang. I actually felt dizzy. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I clapped too, just like him. Just like everything was normal, because in that moment, I understood something. This man thought he could humiliate me quietly, end a 20-year marriage like it was a casual errand. I was supposed to nod, smile, let it happen, but I'm not that woman anymore. He didn't know that 2 months ago. I found out about the affair. He didn't know that I'd already contacted a lawyer. He didn't know about the private investigator, the secret accounts, the hidden texts I'd printed out and locked in a folder marked insurance, and he sure as hell didn't know I had a plan. He wanted a show. He was gonna get one. By the time he started screaming, really screaming, it was too late. But we'll get to that part. Let me start from the beginning. The real beginning. The part where a quiet wife realized she wasn't invisible anymore. The part where I learned that when a woman has nothing left to lose, she becomes someone you should be very afraid of. When people talk about cheating husbands, they always imagine lipstick on collars or late-night phone calls. But for me, it started with silence. Mark used to hum when he made coffee. That dumb little tune from the 80s that I secretly hated. Then one day nothing. No humming. No smile when I handed him his travel mug. Just cold. Like a stranger had stepped into my kitchen wearing my husband's skin tee first. I blamed work. He was a financial consultant, and tax season could turn him into a zombie. But this wasn't stress. This was distance. Emotional, deliberate distance. He started taking more business trips. Started hiding his phone. I remember the first time I asked, "Who's Mandy?" I saw the name flash on his lock screen. He froze, just for a second. Then he smiled and said, "New intern. Don't worry about it." I didn't. Not right away. Because you don't want to be that wife, the paranoid, nagging wife. So I convinced myself it was nothing. I tried harder. I wore makeup more, cooked his favorite meals, bought new lingerie. He didn't notice any of it. But you know who did notice something? Sarah, our daughter. She came home one weekend and asked me quietly, "Is everything okay between you and Dad?" I lied. I smiled and said yes. But that same night, when Mark fell asleep, I did something I never thought I'd do. I went through his phone. He was too smart to keep the messages, but not smart enough to delete the photos from his hidden album. There she was, Mandy, probably 10 years younger than me, in some hotel bed smiling at the camera, wearing the necklace I gave him on our anniversary. I didn't cry. I just stared at the screen. My hands were shaking, but my mind was cold, calculating. That night, I sat in the living room and made a list. Not a list of questions, a list of moves. Hire a private investigator, freeze the joint savings without alerting him, back up all messages and files to my cloud, find a lawyer who's meaner than Helen, most important of all, do not let him know you know. Not yet. It became a game to me, a sick kind of thrill, watching him lie to my face, and smiling back like I believed every word. Every time he said "I love you," I'd say it back, sweet as sugar, but inside, I was sharpening knives. The PI moved fast. Within 2 weeks, I had photos, hotels, restaurant dates, her apartment, even screenshots of Mark sending her money. I made copies, dozens, one set in a fireproof box, one at my sister's, one in a safety deposit box under Sarah's name. I wasn't just preparing for a divorce, I was preparing for war, and then came the graduation. You know what really gets me? He probably thought he was being merciful, announcing the divorce after the ceremony. Like waiting a few hours made him noble, like he was giving me one last happy day. But what he didn't realize, what he never realized, was that I'd already flipped the script. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I just smiled and said, okay, because I knew what was coming, and trust me, screaming was only the beginning. After the ceremony, we all walked out onto the sunlit lawn for pictures. Sarah was glowing, her friends laughing around her in a circle of hugs and flowers. I plastered on my proud mom's smile and stood beside Mark like nothing was wrong. He was fidgeting, sweaty, kept checking his phone like he was waiting for someone or something. That night, we had a dinner reservation at a fancy Italian place. I'd booked it weeks in advance. Mark sat across from me, quiet, barely touching his food. Sarah was excited, showing us photos with her professors and teasing us about who cried the most during the ceremony. When she went to the bathroom, Mark leaned in and whispered again, "We need to talk tonight, after we get home." I nodded, calm, like I was expecting it. Because I was. We got home, and Sarah went upstairs to call her friends. I poured myself a glass of wine, then sat at the kitchen table. He walked in, looking serious like some big, brave man making a hard decision. He sat down across from me and sighed dramatically. "This isn't easy, but I think it's time we end things." I tilted my head and smiled gently. "Oh, why now?" He blinked, caught off guard. "We've been distant. We're not happy anymore. I think it's best for both of us." "How long have you been sleeping with Mandy?" He choked, literally coughed. What?" I laughed. It slipped out before I could stop it. "Come on, Mark. You really thought I didn't know?" His face went pale. He opened his mouth to speak, but I kept going. "I know everything. The hotel rooms, the money you sent her, the necklace. Oh, and the photos? So classy, really." He stood up, stumbling a bit. "You've been spying on me?" "Let's not twist the story, honey," I said, sipping my wine. "You cheated. I just got smart about it." I watched his mind try to catch up. That's when I pulled the envelope from the drawer and slid it across the table. "Divorce papers," I said. "Already drafted. Already reviewed by my attorney. You'll notice I've frozen the joint accounts. My lawyer advised me to. Something about you potentially funneling money to your little side project." He was sweating now, jaw clenched. "You can't do this." I just did. He paced the kitchen like a caged animal. Then, in a last-ditch effort, he sneered, "Sarah will hate you for this." That one made me pause. Not because it hurt, but because I'd already prepared for that too. "She already suspects you. She's not stupid." I didn't show her the pictures, but if you push me I will. He flinched. "You ruined your relationship with her, not me. But sure, go ahead. Keep trying to make yourself the victim. Let's see how far that gets you." He stormed upstairs that night and slammed the door. I sat at the table and finished my wine. For the first time in months, I felt powerful, not just angry, focused. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was leading, but I wasn't done yet. Mark still thought he could walk away clean, get a nice settlement, move in with Mandy, maybe even charm the courts into some sympathy. So I decided to up the ante. Over the next few weeks, I let the system work. My attorney filed fast and hit hard. I had documented proof of infidelity, financial misconduct, even corporate emails misused for personal affairs. Mark was shocked to find his company's legal department CC'd in the discovery requests. Turns out Mandy wasn't just a fling, she worked under him. Company policy violation? Check. He started calling me late at night, first to beg, then to threaten. I didn't answer. I let my lawyer handle everything. Sarah found out a week later. She came to me with tears in her eyes, not because I told her, but because Mark slipped. He got drunk one night and admitted everything. She packed a bag and moved into my sister's house for a while. That broke him more than anything. But you know what really pushed him over the edge? When he got served with a restraining order for trying to withdraw funds from an account he wasn't authorized to touch anymore. The man who thought he held all the power, who once controlled every penny and every lie. was now screaming on the front lawn as the neighbors watched from behind curtains. He yelled that I ruined him, that I was heartless, that I'd set him up, and I just stood at the window, sipping my tea. He wasn't even halfway to the bottom yet, but he'd finally realized he was falling. Mark once told me that control was everything. Whoever stays calm the longest wins, he'd say during arguments, his voice low and collected, even while I was holding back tears. Funny how calm he stayed, until it was his life falling apart. The morning after his lawn meltdown, I got a call from his company's HR department. They wanted a statement. Turns out, the PI I hired had done more than take photos. He'd captured a video of Mark and Mandy in a hotel room paid for by a company card. That, paired with a few steamy work emails I found and included in the legal packet, meant trouble, big trouble. Mark had always prided himself on being respected. Suits that cost more than our mortgage, firm handshakes, that smug little nod he gave to younger employees trying to impress him. He was someone, or at least, he thought he was. By Friday, he was put on unpaid leave, pending internal review. That's corporate speak for you're done, but we need to legally cover our asses first. He tried to call me again, left voicemails, messages, even begged Sarah to talk some sense into me. She blocked his number, didn't even tell me until days later. I think it hurt him more that she didn't rage or cry. She just disconnected, exactly like he taught us to do. Cold, detached. Weeks passed. Divorce proceedings escalated. My lawyer tore through every asset, every account, every loophole. Mark was forced to liquidate one of his investment portfolios to cover legal costs. Mandy, ever the loyal companion, stuck around for now. Then the first article came out. A tech business blog ran a small expose on inappropriate relationships inside finance firms, and Mark's name was buried deep in the middle, along with 2 blurry screenshots and a source familiar with the matter. That source was me, by the way. Anonymous, of course, but damning enough. I didn't leak it out of spite. I leaked it because people like Mark protect each other. His firm wouldn't fire him over the affair alone, but once the public saw it, they had no choice. A week later, he was officially let go. No severance, no goodbye party, just a cold email, and a box of belongings from his office dumped on Mandy's porch. He didn't have anywhere else to go, because I'd kept the house. He'd assumed I'd move out. Fresh start, he said in one email. You can get a condo closer to your job. That made me laugh. He thought he'd get the house where I raised our daughter, where I kept our family running for 20 years just because he was the one with the higher paycheck. But I had the evidence. I had the leverage. And now, I had the title in my name. When he showed up to the house one morning, trying to talk, I didn't open the door. I just called the cops. Quietly, calmly, just like he always said. He left in handcuffs. Not because of me, because of the restraining order he violated. Turns out, people like him don't know how to follow the rules when they're no longer making them. Mandy didn't last long after that. I heard from a mutual friend, one of the few couples who hadn't picked sides entirely, that she moved out of the apartment 3 weeks later. Something about he changed and too much stress. Shocker. She probably thought she was getting a powerful man, a wealthy protector. Instead, she got a hollowed-out version of the guy who used to bark orders in boardrooms and smugly nod at valet drivers. Last I heard, Mark was living with his cousin in New Jersey, applying for remote contract work and dodging whispers of a lawsuit from his former employer. The finance world is small and vindictive. Once the emails went public, so did his reputation. But this wasn't about destroying his career. This was about reclaiming mine. I started therapy, not just for the trauma, though there was plenty of that, but to rediscover who I was outside of Mark's shadow. I got a promotion at work, took a trip to Maine with Sarah, started painting again. One night, I even went on a date. It didn't go anywhere, but I didn't cry afterward. I didn't compare him to Mark. I just came home, took off my heels, and smiled at the silence in my house, the peace, the freedom. People often ask if I regret staying with him as long as I did. And I don't, not really. Because I wasn't stupid, I was loyal. I believed in the promises we made. I kept the house warm, the bills paid, the family together. He was the one who walked away from that. And when he did, I made sure he didn't get to walk away clean. Because here's the truth no one tells you. Sometimes revenge isn't fire. Sometimes it's ice. It's calm, methodical, patient. It's watching someone unravel under the weight of the lies they built and realizing you don't have to lift a finger anymore because they'll destroy themselves just fine. All you have to do is survive. And I did more than survive. I reclaimed my life. So when people ask what happened to Mark, I just smile and say, oh, he started screaming when I stayed quiet, because silence, that was the loudest revenge I ever gave him.